what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy it.
Let's dive into LSU and Oklahoma. This one, as we know, is going to be inside Tiger Stadium. We know Oklahoma's coming off their biggest win of the year, only their second win in SEC play, but certainly looked the part against Alabama a week ago. T-Bob, what makes you the most nervous about this Oklahoma football team?
I mean, I think it's simply that they, what they've been ever since they fired their offensive coordinator, what they've been doing offensively lines up with your weaknesses. Brian Kelly even talked about it at the press conference on Monday, basically saying that their body of work in regards to running quarterbacks has not been the best this year. Of course, there was a good Taylor Green game, but then there's probably about 3 negative data points there as well. And if you haven't watched, if people listening, if you haven't watched this Oklahoma team as of late, so they fired their OC in the middle of the season, and then 2 weeks ago, they just straight up became a sort of modern triple option quarterback run team. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are leaning on Jackson Arnold's legs. I was talking to Gabe Eichert about this last night. It went on the podcast with him and Teddy Lehman. And and they said, look, man, there's going to be an option up the middle, an option on the edge, and the quarterback can keep so. That is something that has given LSU trouble at times. But I will say this, Jake, that is very similar to what you ran into last week against Vanderbilt.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought the defense acquitted themselves very well there. So that would be another positive data point. So offensively, Oklahoma's found a bit of confidence here. The O-line's playing better. They got healthier. They don't have any weapons. They're down their top 6 receivers. So it's not really through the air, but on the ground that LSU has to be at their best to stop. But although, if you had asked me before last week, I maybe would have felt awful. I do feel better on that side of the ball now after that Vanderbilt game.
When you look at their leading receiver, T-Bob's point, he's only got 320 yards on the year. You've got 4 or 5 players that have at least that. And so they are not getting it done through the air. And so, for me, what's the game plan going to be? Is it going to be, hey, like we've done in the past in these type of situations, and we're going to play cover one and say, hey, we're playing man across the board. We're going to have more guys towards the line of scrimmage, and we're going to, dare you to throw the football, basically, because you look at the game plan last week, and that's kind of what it was. And you got on one double move, and outside of that, you shut that down. So I would assume it's going to be the same. And if your edge rushers, and that's key, T-Bob, your edge rushers were so good last week at keeping contained, staying with their assignment, and that's why Diego Pavia and that offense can never get going. If you can get that same production from those 2 players, then I think you can be successful against this Oklahoma offense.
I should know this off the top of my head, but what's the status of Garrett and Dellinger going into this weekend?
Tay?
Nothing is confirmed one way or the other. I assume it's still game time decision like it's been the last 3 weeks because Kelly hasn't given an update one way or the other.
T-Bob, you've been in this situation. Honestly, I would lean towards probably not playing unless something has changed drastically in the lead up to the game.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess so let's have the conversation as if he's not playing because we haven't gotten the injury report and all that stuff yet. I'm a bit worried for LSU's offense here. Now, on one hand, if Oklahoma has struggled anywhere, it's been giving up some big pass plays, and so that would bode well for LSU, but that's a really good Oklahoma front seven. And although I thought Paul Mabenga played much better last week, we highlighted it and we celebrated it. Vanderbilt's front seven, like Oklahoma's front seven is Jake. I mean, you tell me, is Oklahoma's front seven better than Alabama's? Or better than Florida's?
I mean, I would put them all par with both those teams that you're talking about.
Okay, so that's my point, right? Is that, yeah, you were way better last week, but admittedly, although Vandy's pretty good up front, they're not quite as good as those guys.
Right.
This is a much bigger test. And Brent Venables, being a defensive-minded guy, the same way Mike Elko is going to look to scheme up a lot of stuff to try to maybe exploit the youth of Mabinga and company if he is still in there. So I guess my overall point is we've seen the offensive line struggle against some good front sevens lately. I think you got a really good front seven coming against Saturday, so that does give me some cause for concern.
To T-Bob's point, right now Oklahoma is 4th in the SEC as far as yards given up. I believe they're 8th in points, but they're only giving up 311 yards per game. Texas is first, Tennessee second, South Carolina third, and then Oklahoma comes in at number 4. When you look at what they give up through the air, 205 yards through the air, but really stingy on the ground, only 105 yards given up on the ground as well, and one of the top in the league. And so even when they've struggled, T-Bob, they have been pretty good on defense. That's why you make a move. And you look, defensive head coach, it's no surprise there, but that's why you make a move at the offensive coordinator position. So there's been stretches where they've not been good. That's the obvious statement, because they go on the road and they beat Auburn. Remember, they had to come back in that. They got a pick six, found a way to win that one. Then you lose against Texas. You lose against South Carolina. You get ran out of the building, really, in both those games. But then you come back and you have a close loss against Ole Miss on the road. You beat Maine. That's not going to do anything, but you get your job done. Then you lose a close one on the road against Missouri, and then you beat Alabama last week. And so the last 4 weeks, it has looked like a completely different team than it did when you were going through some of the losses of Texas and South Carolina.
Well, and to be fair, like LSU, if I sound a bit concerned about Oklahoma, it's because we just seen them what they can be like at their peak, right? But they have been very up and down, similar to LSU in that way. Like, what LSU is going to show up? Like the Arkansas, will it be the Arkansas defensive team? Will it be the team of the first half against A&M? Will it be the team that moved up and down the field, the offense that moved up and down the field at will against South Carolina? Or will it be the team that we saw against Alabama that looks completely incapable of any offensive success? Will Garrett Nussmeier be playing instinctive and snapping passes, or will he look a little hesitant and reticent? Oklahoma's kind of in the same boat, which Oklahoma are you going to get? Even in that last month, the good month, like the one that lost to Mizzou, or the one that ran Alabama just out the building, like one of the most physically dominant performances of the entire season, beating the Tide 24-3. I will say this, that game was in Norman. This game is on the road. I know we talked about that a lot Alabama weekend and didn't mean anything, but it should mean something here. If you look at those results and you see that, well, Oklahoma, that's when they've struggled this year mainly, has been on the road.
Yeah, I mean, the Alabama game is the one time that you just didn't show up. I mean, you take a look at the other games. Obviously, USC, you have a chance. A&M, you're in complete control until you weren't. Even the Florida game, fourth quarter, you go into the start of the fourth quarter tied, and that's the one. Certainly, they got away from you. One of your favorite stats, stop rate. Have you looked at that this week?
No, give me a stop rate. Give me a stop rate, Jakey Jake.
It's going to favor Oklahoma because LSU right now is 86th in the country, 58.5% of the time.
Damn it.
Oklahoma
we
actually
fell off. We were in the 60s like much of the year, dude. That's a bit disappointing.
Oklahoma's
it's still up from like the 120 last year, but still.
I mean, last year was Oklahoma's 12th, 72.1%.
So this, Jake, is why I think stop rate is a great statistic, because think about Oklahoma from a points allowed perspective. They're okay, right? What'd you say? They were 8th in the SEC?
Yes.
But so what this tells you is the majority of the time they're getting the stops, but their offense just sucks.
Yep.
And is giving the ball back to the other team a ton. And so, Oklahoma is getting a super high percentage of stops, but teams are getting more opportunities. That's where Oklahoma's offensive shift in philosophy becomes dangerous, because all of a sudden it's more ball control, more game control, and trying to limit those possessions that you're giving back to the opponent. And so that defense and that stop rate can really shine.
Right now, when you look at stop rate, Notre Dame 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Tennessee 4. So all playoff teams right now.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that, right?
Now you have some
Defense
others,
wins
like,
championship.
you know, Ole
Something's
Miss is
never
5.
changed, dude. You know who said that? I'm pretty sure that Olaf, right? Some things never change. Na-na-na-na-na-na. Right? That's Frozen, from one of the Frozens. I don't remember who said it.
I've got 4 older boys, and Harlow's not quite there yet, so I couldn't tell you Frozen.
Thanksgiving.
But okay, so whatever. I don't know who's going to win the football game. Is the overall point? I don't know.
It
I
depends
have
if
no
I
idea.
can get to Jackson Arnold or not.
It's all on Alondra's shoulders now. We've done our part. We'll see if she can do her part.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.